Please tell me about your unique encounter with the legendary Mike Krzyzewski recently.
Okay, so this was a couple years ago, about 5 years ago, and I was still working for Our State Magazine. I was over at Duke University to talk to a professor over there about a story I was working on.
Totally unrelated.
Nothing to do with sports, nothing like that.
To do with Coach K.
And so I was talking to him, and he's like, "You ever been here before?" And I was like, "No. You should walk around. You should go to Joe Van Gogh. You should go check out the chapel." Like, oh, okay, yeah. So took a lap around Duke, and I was like, "This is nice." And on the way back to my car, I was walking up that staircase right next to Cameron Indoor, and there's that parking lot, sort of upper parking lot behind the arena. And I'm just walking. There's nobody else around, and I hear a door open. I turn around, and out comes Coach K. And he's got the Duke polo shirt on. He's carrying a couple things, and he has a paper cup of coffee in his hand. And he did this thing that if you drink enough coffee over time, this will happen to you. He tripped a little bit, and reflexively, his hands kind of pinched, like a lobster.
Sure.
And the top popped off, and coffee goes all over him, all over his shirt. So he looks down at his shirt, and then he looks up and around and is like, did anybody see that? And he looks over, and the only person standing there is me. And so I'm looking at him, he looks at me, and in that moment, I just looked at him, and I said, I'm like, "Hey, Coach K." And he looks at me, and I was like, "Can I get a picture with you?" And he looks at me like I have like 5 heads. He's just like, why would you ask me now if we could get a picture? And so he says, "Hey, now's not a good moment. I have coffee dripping off my shirt. Also, it's not really what I do. I don't really take pictures with random people in parking lots." And I was like, actually, I understand that. Like, now you can get photobombed by a lot of people you don't suspect. Like, I get it. I was like, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, and you're having a bad moment. I don't want to do that. And I was like, well, see you later. I turn around, start walking away. As I'm walking away, I have this satchel on with a bunch of my equipment in it, and the strap breaks, crashes to the ground. And I'm like, did anybody see that? And of course, the only person that saw that is Coach K. And so we both lock eyes again. And I was like, I guess this is karma, right? Like this is just what happens from me asking you for a picture of the bad time. He's like, yeah, but don't worry about it. It's cool. I was like, all right, see you later. He's like, bye. And I was walking back to my car. I'm like, are we friends now? Like,
you had a moment.
Do we just have a connection? And I'm loading my stuff into my car. And I'm still processing this, and I'm getting in. And as I'm getting into my car, I hear something behind me, and it's this big vehicle. Turn around, there's this Cadillac Escalade behind me, and behind the wheel is Coach K. And he's like, "Hey, again, I wanted to tell you something. You're about to drive off with a cup of coffee on top of your car." And I was like, of course I am. Like, I'm an idiot. Like, yeah, I'm just one of these days. He's like, "Yeah, man, I know." He's like, "You know something? When I was at the military academy and I was a cadet, I used to leave my hat on top of my car all the time. I would put it in my car, and I would drive off and go flying off." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm like, this just happens sometimes." He goes, "Yeah, I guess we all just have too much on our minds." And I was like, "Yeah, we do, I guess. Well, bye. See you later." And I got my car, and I was like, "No, we're definitely friends now. Like, we're going to hang out."
Coach K, like that has got to be the most unassuming, the most normal, everyday human interaction that anybody has ever had with Coach K.
Yeah.
Because, like, at this point, he's one of those. I think of, like, John Mulaney did the stand-up talking about Mick Jagger, who another person who you've not really crossed paths with, but
he hasn't replied to me.
Yeah, but he just talks about how Mick Jagger's doesn't live a normal life because he says Diet Coke and one appears in his hand, right?
Yeah.
Like Coach K at this point, not that he's an elitist, but just his world is done so differently than anybody else's that, like, he doesn't have that many moments. Like, he probably doesn't carry his own coffee too often, right?
Yeah.
To spill his coffee. And how often is he driving by and stops other drivers to warn them of things, hazards that might be left outside their car? So,
and tell some story too about, like,
that he did the same thing
in college. And I was like, why? Like, when I was reminded of this, like, why did I like jump at the chance to get a picture with him? I'm not usually that kind of person. And then I realized, I know exactly why. My wife is when she went to UNC, she is a very level-headed, lovely person. But then when she watches, like, the UNC Duke game, it is like she becomes, like, it turns into like a werewolf. It becomes crazy.
Yes.
And like, I learned you can't even make the joke, like, whatever you say about Coach K, he's a good coach. Like, she made me apologize for having been born after I made that joke. And I was like, the thing that I think I really want most in this world is for her to look at her phone and open it up and see a text from me, and then open the text and see my smiling face next to Coach K, and to figure out how to emotionally process that. How do you deal with that? Seeing the person that is your husband next to the person that you hate.
You don't seem like a picture guy. I'm not either. I am a story guy. Like what you got is better than any picture. I know it's not. I know it can't be preserved on Instagram or whatever. But like I am much rather I would rather talk for 2 minutes to whoever the person is than to have a picture. And like I don't need anybody else to know that I met them. I know, right? I've had a couple brief interactions, like, I've gone through airport security with the Fonz, right?
Uh-huh.
And I didn't ask him for a picture. Like, I talked to the Fonz and told him I respected all his work, right? So I think it worked out perfectly in the way that it did, that you didn't get your picture, but you did get your story.
Yes.